Hello listeners, Jordan here. I just want to let you know that you can listen to Nighttime early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime. I got a question for all the listeners out there. Have you ever seen a ghost or spent any time in a haunted house? If so, this message is for you. Every October, Nighttime gets into the spirit of the eerie and the unexplained. And we want you and your ghosts to join us for Nighttime's Haunted Listener Special. If you've had a brush with the beyond, survived the unexplained, or witnessed a mysterious event, don't keep it buried. We'd like to dig it up with you. You can share your spooky story in a few ways. You can leave a voice message at nighttimepodcast.com/contact, or you can email a short version to nighttimepodcast@gmail.com, and I'll contact you and we can summon those ghosts together. I'm dying to hear from all the haunted listeners out there. Don't be shy.
You are listening to the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the next installment of Nighttime's listener-contributed Encounters with Creeps series. In this episode, we're going to dive headfirst into the 21st volume of listener-contributed stories of unsettling encounters with creepy people. As usual, the stories we receive from you are great examples of creep encounters, but tonight, we're going to make it all extra special. Madelayne and I are thrilled to have a very special guest joining us, Alaina Urquhart from the Morbid Podcast. So buckle up and welcome to yet another collection of your encounters with creeps. Madelayne, we're on volume 21 of Unpacking Listener-Contributed Encounters with Creeps. There's no secret that we found ourselves in over our heads, and that's why I called upon someone who knows creeps as good, if not better, than anybody on this planet. She is the co-lead of a Gothic Empire, best-selling author, certified weirdo, Alaina Urquhart from Morbid Podcast.
Woo! Yay. I am so excited to be here to talk about creeps.
Well, I hope you have a seatbelt on that computer desk, because
oh damn.
If you don't know the background of this, many moons ago, I asked listeners of Nighttime to share with me times that they've encountered someone they thought to be a creep or a weirdo. So, things like weird first dates, odd people at work, random weirdos on the street. And as I said at the beginning there, we're now on volume 21. I get inundated with voicemails from all around the world from people telling me about weirdos. And pretty much every second week, Madelayne and I sit down and listen to maybe 5 or 10 of them. So I have a huge collection of these stories to pull from. And when I knew you were going to come on, I set out to shock you. So we got some good ones tonight.
Oh, I'm excited.
It's going to be good. But before we do, for people new to Morbid Podcasts that are listening to you right now on Encounters with Creeps, tell me a little bit about you and your background and your show.
So I co-host Morbid, and it started off as like a purely true crime podcast, but we kind of morphed it into like all things weird and kind of like dark history. We do some paranormal stuff, but it's mostly true crime. And I do it with my niece, who is basically like my sister. We grew up together. We're like 10 years apart. Ash Kell. And I started off as an autopsy technician. So I definitely know strange and unusual and spooky for sure. And I kind of came out of the womb that way, I think.
I think so too. And somehow amidst all of this, you're like releasing a string of best-selling books that are they not turning into a TV show? Are you getting a TV show?
They are.
Off?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I beats me, to be quite honest. But I have The Butcher and the Wren, and The Butcher Game just came out, the sequel, and it won't end there. But they're going to be turned into a TV show, and we have Jennifer Yale show running it. She did Dexter. She worked on Outlander. She's done all kinds of cool stuff, and we have Radio Silence directing it, which is really exciting.
Wow. I'm not going to ask why you're wasting your time here with us, so let's just jump into it.
Don't give her an out.
I go into a Zoom with those people and I'm like, are you sure you guys want me here? Like, am I supposed to be here? Hi, everyone.
Well, I was on the Morbid podcast a couple times, most recently talking about the glove guy. And during that appearance on your show, I mentioned the Encounters with Creep series, and it seems like listeners of Morbid really cling to it because I'm not exaggerating. One out of every five creep encounter voicemails I receive start with like, "Hi Jordan, heard of you on Morbid," and they go on to tell their story. So
I love that.
why don't we just start with a Morbid listener sharing a creep encounter? We'll jump right in. This is a listener. This is confusing. Her name is Georgia, but she's from California and encountered a creep at work. Listen to this.
Hi, my name is Georgia. I'm from California. I heard about your podcast when you were a guest on Morbid. I love that podcast. It's one of the podcasts that I listen to religiously and one of the only podcasts that my husband and I can agree on. And I just pivoted a little bit. I ran out of Morbid podcasts to listen to. So I have now been binging the Encounters with Creeps episodes. And then I realized that I have had encounters with creeps, and I would love to share it with you. So, when I was like 18 or 19, I worked at a local restaurant in my hometown, and I was a server. And we had a guy that would come in semi-regularly, and he was not too much older than me. And when I say that, I mean like maybe 6 or so years older than me. And he was nice. I would chat with him when I was doing things if I had time. And, I was being cordial. Nothing was all that strange. And then one day, I get home from work and I had a message request. And I am going to read some of this message. I'll pick the highlights because it's quite long. It says, "Hello. I liked the colors you wore today. You looked absolutely gorgeous. And I only say that to women that I'm interested in. And I will state that you and a very select few have my mind occupied with the goals I have in mind for the future. If you want to be my friend, keep doing what you're doing. If you're interested in me and would like to get to know me on a deeper level, don't be afraid. I enjoy your presence. It reminds me of the feeling of the wind in my hair, one of my favorite feelings, and the reason of why I run long distances. It's something I don't get over feeling. So, to be blunt, I love the way your voice sounds, and you have a nice ass." I didn't skip, this is me, I didn't skip any sentences in that last chunk there, so we're just kind of bebopping around. Topic-wise, I'm going to go back into this message here. He says, "Unless we have a foundation in friendship that would help me see that you're a safe place for me and my future family and that area of my life, including that you are a worthy person among the people in my life, that my family will accept you. And my mother already knows your name." Yeah. Then he continues to say, "These are my plans for when I reach 30. I will get married to whoever really cares and who I find fit." Here, he also says, "Right now, there are 3 others that I have taken interest in. One doesn't seem to be real. Will you be real with me? If I make you feel uncomfortable, communicate. I will move on. I'm the kind of guy that has set the standard to court whoever shows me that they are really interested in me. I will seem like a player until then. I'm looking for a queen on a chessboard, understands how to handle life and the priorities that allow me to move freely and accomplish my business. I'm only sending you this information because I no longer am going to hide who I am to people. Have a good evening. Distance makes the heart grow fonder, but are you interested in that kind of life with that amount of pain?" So yeah, that was his message. I have no clue what the distance make the heart grows fonder thing meant. Yeah.
I'm going to just take a quick break in the middle so we can unpack this because this has a surprising ending. So I've seen some weird Facebook messages, but that I think will take the cake.
It's the "don't be afraid" would have me running I would be in orbit. Like, I'm out.
Well,
I would absolutely read the whole thing, but my message back would be, "I'm not reading all of that."
Too long, didn't read.
This is like no.
it's
I'm happy for you. I'm sorry that happened. I'm not sure, but I'm not reading it.
I'm not sure.
parts of it come across as just like this odd person that's putting way too much out there, but then and you have a nice ass. That just seems out of place in a lot of it.
Yeah.
But it's certainly, a lot of these calls come in and we will decide if it is a creep or a misunderstanding. So far, I'm leaning heavily into creep.
A
Yes.
creep that's like spiraling.
Yeah.
Call the authorities.
Yeah.
Something's not
Oh
right.
yeah, I would not want this person knowing where I live. But let's hear how it ends. So this is a customer that is regularly coming into the restaurant. She sees this Facebook message. Here's how it goes.
He did continue to come in. We didn't really have any problems. I didn't confront him. I didn't say anything. Flash forward a few months, and he was hired actually at my job to work the night shift with me. So, of course, I go to my boss and tell my boss kind of what has happened and that I wasn't really comfortable with the situation. And I let my boss read the letter, or the message, sorry. And basically, my boss had said that he will talk to him and that he doesn't think this guy is dangerous. He didn't see him as a threat. There was really no reason to be nervous. That he was socially awkward. So, flash forward, after that, he was just awkward. And I think maybe nobody ever taught him how to interact with other humans in a way that is, like, socially acceptable. So, yeah, that's my story. Thank you guys for your podcast.
That's how it ends. I almost feel bad for him at the end. If someone is that socially, like, inept, it's kind of sad.
But he's exuding a certain confidence.
That's the
in this
thing.
message too. He's like, there's 3 other prospects that I'm like, you might be lucky enough to like get my time. We're like,
yeah, it's this kind of like clumsy, awkward confidence mixed with definitely serial killer kind of vibes.
He sounds like one of those like those alpha guys who are like trying to like sell this like dating game thing where they're like, oh, you need to like make the girl feel like she's worthless and then she'll fall in love with you kind of bullshit.
Yes.
I feel like he's one of those guys who's like, I'm an alpha guy. So I have all these other women who I'm doing the same thing to, and you'll be lucky if you're even in line.
Yeah. And it just the hook that he ends up getting hired at her work to work the night shift. That's just, but then it's anticlimactic because then he seems, he's just a weird guy at my work.
Yeah, he's just a
surprising
weird
end.
guy at my work now.
he's well, and she worked at a restaurant, so you just know he's kitchen staff.
Oh,
that's a real kitchen staff thing.
certainly.
Very kitchen staffy.
Well, I think that's just a statement for the type of people you run into when you work the night shift at a restaurant. When he's just one of the crew.
Well, and I love the boss just being like, oh, no. Like, he's not dangerous. It's like, oh, I'm so glad that you determined that. Thank you. Thank you. I feel so much safer. He did say, don't be afraid. So thanks.
We're fine. I hope he printed it out and like slid it across the desk. I was like, what's this? Can you explain?
When I mentioned when I was on Morbid most recently, we talked about the story of the glove guy. I often hear from listeners of your show, Alaina, asking me for updates. What's new with the glove guy? I don't really get into it much on my show anymore after the whole nonsense that went down. But I did just recently get a voicemail from a listener named Kayla who has a bit of an inside scoop with Glove Guy. And she sent me a short voicemail about her childhood growing up in and around the Glove Guy phenomena. So I'm going to air it.
God.
I'll air it, and then we'll get into the collection of creep stories for tonight. So here's what Kayla has to say.
Hey, Nighttime Podcast. I'm quite familiar with the Glove Guy, but for a different reason. He's lived in the same community as me for pretty much as long as I can remember. When I was younger, I don't think he had a car because he would be on the road hitchhiking all of the time, and he was really creepy, and I don't know how he ever got picked up, but he would be standing there on the side of the road with his boots, his leather jacket, just looking rather creepy. Yeah, so he's pretty well known in our community. So, but a few years ago, probably during COVID, around that time, the house sold that he always lived in. He would always set up a sign out front of his house and have like, oh, stop and see my gloves, whatever. Kind of on the way to Peggy's Cove, so he would get some of the tourists coming in there. Yeah, so I didn't really know that he had a car, and I wasn't aware that he was like creeping out kids or creeping out young people at the bars and stuff. I had never any encounters like that with him, but definitely have seen him many, many times and just knew he was a creep from the community. But since he sold his house, have not seen hide nor hair of him in years and years. So I'm curious to know if these are still happening, or is he gone now? Who knows? But yeah, that's all I have to say.
Damn.
Yeah.
He was having people come in his house?
Yeah, well, for years he would have a sign out front of his house, and he had like a little like kind of garage area where people could come in and see his gloves, which is terrifying.
No.
I didn't get into that with you guys, but what she says is since the house had sold, she had not seen or heard from him. Same thing here, and for anyone else in Halifax, I have not heard of anyone having glove guy encounters in Halifax for the last year or so. So I think he may have jumped ship.
He's gone dormant.
I can't believe the glove guy lore goes beyond just like the people of the bar scene. She was a kid, and he was like the weird glove guy of the block.
Or the leather hitchhiker.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
So I want to know what's going on with that house now. I'm like, is it like House of a Thousand Corpses in there? Like, what's going on?
Condemned.
What'd they find?
Yeah, you cut a hole in the drywall and there's just like strips of leather.
Just gloves everywhere.
Well, let's get into it here. The way I do this usually is we'll break up our creep encounters into themes. And tonight's themes are going to be pets, random encounters, which is always a theme. And then we have a section that I'm going to call the Trusted Institution segment. So that's going to include teachers, priests, and crisis line.
Oh, no.
Oh, God.
Oh, no.
We'll save that.
When you said pets, Alaina and I both gave a look. We're like, no.
What?
Let's do it. Let's start. Well, that's a sign. That's where we start with our pet segment.
Where we start.
Do you have pets, Alaina?
I do. I have 2 dogs,
Okay.
Sydney Prescott and Blanche Devereaux.
What was the first one?
Sydney Prescott.
I love it. Blanche Devereaux.
And she is Blanche Devereaux.
Have you ever had a weird experience walking your dogs? Because it's funny, because the reason I ask is I get a lot of creep encounters that involve dog walks.
No, I haven't yet, but they're not even 2 years old yet.
Oh, you have plenty of time for that.
There's still
I had a
lots
dog
of time.
forever, and I'm sure I had weird experiences walking her, but I can't remember any of them.
Okay, well, let's hear about Abby's dog walking experience. This takes place in Florida, of course.
Of course.
Oh, no.
Hi, Jordan and Madelayne. This is my submission for Encounters with Creeps. I live over in Tampa, Florida, and for reference in the story, I'm at home. It's a Tuesday, like right at noon. I work from home, and I'm wearing a t-shirt, a baggy t-shirt, shorts, and my hair's messy, not brushed. Definitely don't look like I'm ready to do anything other than walk my dogs. And I also happen to be wearing no bra. That feels like it might be a little important to the story. It didn't seem important before I exited my house, but this guy is driving very slowly as I'm walking and I'm trying to cross the street, so I'm waiting for him to pass. And he makes a quick turn and parks in a parking spot directly in front of where I'm standing and proceeds to get out of the car and ask me for building 46. And I say, oh, I think you might have it wrong. There's only 20 buildings in this area. That's not building number. And he gets all frustrated. He's like, it's probably just that I'm getting stood up. Like, this person probably gave me the wrong address. Like, she probably is just lying to me. I'm like, oh, sorry. I didn't know he was upset. And sorry. I was like, maybe there's another one nearby. Like, maybe it's another complex that you're looking for. I'm sure it's not malicious. He's like, no. I'm supposed to meet with this girl from Tinder. I'm on my lunch break right now, and she probably stood me up. And he's driving a shitty car, but he's wearing a full, suit and tie, fancy shoes, all that. And again, 12 o'clock on a Tuesday, I'm like, okay, he's going to hook up with someone from Tinder on his lunch break. that's okay, I guess. I'm just trying to walk my dogs. Again, they really have to pee at this point. And I'm like, okay, well, good luck, finding her. It's like, I'm sure it's around here somewhere. He's like, oh, no, I doubt it. Like, it's a lost cause. He's like, you know how Tinder is. And I'm like, no, I don't. He's like, oh, are you on Tinder? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I have a boyfriend. And he's like, oh, okay, well, that's a bummer because I was wondering if you wanted to hang out if you're busy right now. And I was like, well, no, I am busy walking my dogs and I do not want to hang out. I have a boyfriend. And he just proceeds. He's like, oh, that's too bad. Your boyfriend's a really lucky guy. You are beautiful. And we're just standing there in an awkward silence because of course we are. And he just out of nowhere goes, oh, I love your shirt. I love that band. And I look down and I see my current situation, my noticeable situation.
Oh, the no bra. I forgot.
And I'm like, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. It's really adding to the uncomfortableness of the situation. And then he proceeds to talk about the band. It's Sublime. It's just a Sublime t-shirt. And he just continues on. He's like, oh, could I, give you my phone number maybe in case you wanted to hang out? I was like, I appreciate it. No, thank you. I really need to walk my dogs now. And he was just persistent and just kept yapping on. And finally I was like, okay, like my dogs got visibly upset. And I'm like, I'm going to go now. Bye. And I'm like mentally taking down his license plate because I refuse to be murdered by this man. Too paranoid for that. He eventually drives away after a little bit, and I like call a friend just to let them know that this is a weird thing that's happening. So I guess don't try to pick people up in a random apartment complex on your lunch break when you're trying to meet another Tinder date. I don't know.
Valid advice, I think.
You can learn something with a lot of these stories.
You really can.
Oftentimes we learn to trust, your spider sense. But in this case, I think just good dating advice is if you're in the middle of being stood up on your lunch break in your shitty car in your suit, maybe not the time to like approach a random woman walking their dogs.
Who isn't wearing a bra?
Yeah, I think this just happened to be the horniest guy in all of Florida that she happened upon. And
like on his lunch break.
Yeah.
Who goes on a quote unquote date on a lunch break? It wasn't a date.
No. I have a feeling this woman or whatever that gave him like building 46 doesn't exist. Like I think this guy probably sent her some Bitcoin right before he headed to her place.
And it was the your boyfriend's a lucky guy thing. I was like, you ever hear that?
Always.
Run for the fucking hills. Like, get out of there. Get out of there. As soon as I heard that, I was like, whoa. You know that kind of guy.
Yeah, the motto of the creep.
Yes.
Let's ramp it up a little bit. We're going to stick with pets. This one, though, is going to get a little dark. We'll step into your territory a bit, Alaina. This is going to be called Janelle's Dead Pet Creep.
Damn.
Hi, guys. This is Janelle calling from Maine, not too far from y'all up in Canada. I have been a veterinary nurse or veterinary technician for 24 years, and I had this very weird thing with a person who would come and pick up the bodies of the pets that we had euthanized. Obviously, we store them at the clinic, and then they're picked up by a pet cemetery, crematorium for cremation or what have you. So, mind you, this is a person who is picking up the frozen remains of people's pets. And this guy would come in and always flirt with all of us technicians while he's picking up these bodies and make the most disgusting innuendos like,
No.
oh, I bet you girls, love to roll around with the little puppies and kittens, or he'd say just weird things like, "Oh, are you single?" and just like, "Are you serious, dude?" Like, first of all, he was gross. Like, he was not well kept. And I am not a job snob, but again, you're
Just like,
picking
I'm gonna
up
be
dead
honest.
bodies for a living, and you are flirting with girls who are, some of them were much younger than him. And finally, I had to call the crematorium and be like, look, either you tell this dude to cut the crap or you send us somebody different, because nobody wants him leering at us in our scrubs and such while he's holding Fluffy's remains. Anyway, I love you guys so much. I get such a kick out of this portion of the podcast. I literally am like screaming and laughing and talking to myself out loud with all the creepy stories you guys share and that the listeners share. And it just makes my day, sadly, whatever that says about me. Anyway, I hope y'all have a great one. Take care.
Wow.
What it says about Janelle is that she too is
Not
sick,
like this
but not
guy.
sick like this guy who would. No, what is worse? Like the guy who gets stood up, who tries to pick up the random girl walking her dog, or the dude who flirts while picking up the euthanized
I will
animals?
say
Oh,
I have experienced that in the morgue with people picking up the remains of dead humans.
And they like flirt with you?
A lot, actually.
oh,
It happens.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Especially the ones that come a lot, like they're the transporter for that funeral home, so you see them a lot, and they try to make it happen, and you're like, we're standing in a freezer right now, surrounded by people's loved ones. Like,
You know
you're
what?
literally
Okay, like
taking
fine,
someone
do what you gotta
away.
do, shoot your shot, I guess. It's the weird jokes that got me.
Yeah, that's the one that got me.
mm-hmm.
I bet you love to roll around.
Yeah, to
with
reference
puppies
what's
and
going
I'd
on.
be like, I'd call the cops. Like, immediately. I'd be like, you need to go. Like, something's wrong with you.
Yeah, like I think if that was your world and you work there and you don't reference it or talk about it at all and you make a connection with someone, maybe it's okay slightly.
Well-
But if you're referencing, like there's a lot of cold bodies
Like,
in here,
what?
but you're quite hot. It's like, whoa, leave them out of this.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like that's the same guy. He stops at the gas station on the way back and does the same kind of crap there to the poor worker who has to put up with him, smiling
Yeah,
and nodding
what?
like, yes,
Does he stop at
sir,
funerals on the
whatever.
way home and just like try to pick up, sad people at people's grave sites? Like, like, is this your thing?
We've come across a lot of weird fetishes in the Creep Encounter series.
I'm
That one
sure.
we haven't heard of yet, but I guarantee it's out there.
Oh, for sure.
Let's move on to well, I would say to something lighter, but no, there's a lot more awful stuff coming up.
You're like, no, we wouldn't do that.
No, let's move on to our segment about trusted institutions. The first
I'm
These ones are
interested.
The first story is going to involve a teacher. We'll call this story The
Uh-oh.
Teacher, the Mushroom, and the Obscene Short Story.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Hi, Jordan. I have a submission for your Encounters with Creeps episodes involving one of my high school English literature teachers. So, these events happened probably around 2016 when I was a junior in high school. The first instance, my teacher approached me before class to ask if I knew what a phallus mushroom was. I didn't, and he told me that I should look up pictures of them. Well, if you didn't guess by the name, phallus mushrooms strongly resemble male genitalia. The next week, he had a short story for me to read.
Oh,
This
Lord.
didn't strike me as weird since I was a nerdy kid who liked to read, but he told me not to tell anyone about it. The short story consisted of two parents with a hospitalized kid who turned to a giant black dildo for hope? I don't remember the title of it, and respectfully, I'm not going to look for it. Lastly, he recommended a book for me to read, which once again isn't weird in itself, except his selling point was having me read an excerpt about how the narrator got sexually aroused by right angles. Looking back on the situation, the first red flag would have been that this man left his job at the local community college to come teach high schoolers. The second red flag being that I had mentioned the short story incident to one of my friends, and she had the teacher as well for a different class period, and I guess he had her read it as well, and she had said, oh, so-and-so had mentioned this to me, and the next day, he came up to me and he said, why did you tell so-and-so about the story? I don't remember what I said at this point, but, I just thought that this man was really weird. I won't be saying my name or my city since this man is still employed by my former high school.
No.
But thank you.
No.
Why don't you look up a phallus mushroom?
The day a male teacher says to one of my daughters, don't tell anyone about this, it is on site. That man will never exist. Like, you won't find him. There won't be a place on earth he will be safe.
Yeah, even if it's a short story.
No. Whatever it is.
If he's still employed. I don't think there's a statute of limitations on that.
Yes.
So we'll still report
But
him.
it's the thing is, though, it's like it's the kind of thing that he could argue, like, oh, it's just like literature. But I guess it is sexual. Like,
yeah. There's like dick-shaped mushrooms and black dildos. Like, let's...
Yeah, this teacher, I do not like him. I don't like that he's still employed. Let's move on to a different institution.
He's a problem.
Yeah, he's a problem. Let's go to another institution that is not problematic. This story is called A Man of God and Porn.
I literally knew you were going there.
Nice.
Hi, so this is an encounter with creeps story that involves my neighbor. He's about 40 years old. He moved here. I live in an apartment building. He moved into this apartment with his parents, and now his parents have gone back to their homeland. So he stayed behind, and it's the first time he's ever lived on his own. 40 years old. He's very socially awkward. I don't think he's ever had a girlfriend. And I feel bad for him. He had told me that he had wanted to be a priest, but that he, had problems with the church, that, he didn't elaborate on that. So, and I didn't ask for any follow-up details. I'm a religious person, but he's like, I'd say bordering or well into weird religious territory, that like those religious people that seem like they could be part of a cult and they're doing, behind closed doors, a lot of non-religious things, if you will. Anyway, I just get a weird vibe from him. Sometimes I feel like when we run into each other, like, I'll be throwing out the garbage and I just get the feeling like he wants to lean in and hug me, and it's weird. So anyway, he called me a couple of weeks ago and he just said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Can you please, come out into the hall. I'm trapped in my apartment. You have to open my door for me." And I'm like, "You're trapped?" He's like, "I just can't open the door." So I'm like, okay. So I'm standing there and I'm, I hear him behind the door. So I'm trying to open it and it's not budging. All of a sudden I hear his lock disengage and then the door opens. So clearly he had the lock on. It's like, okay, you couldn't open your door. You had your lock on. So this to me just seemed like a bizarre excuse to interact with me. It was just so weird. I got such a funny feeling. I didn't even wait for him to then emerge from his apartment. As soon as the door opened, I just said, okay. I went back into my apartment, and it just, not long after this, I ran into another neighbor and I happened to mention this encounter because it just weirded me out a little bit. And she said, "Oh, please don't trust him. Stay away from him." She's like, "Do you know the reason he didn't become a priest?" I said, "No." She said, "Oh, well, he told me that he's a sex addict, that he was spending so much time with porn and that he realized he couldn't be a priest." So when I heard that, again, not that there's anything wrong with what people do behind closed doors, but a combination of the weird, awkward energy he gives off, the possible incel vibes, the weird things he asked me to do, including what I think was a bogus request to get him out of his apartment because he was trapped. That combined with the whole religion and the tension between the hyper religiosity and the porno, I just get weird vibes from him. And I'm really hoping I don't have to call up again in a few days or weeks to tell you about my latest creep encounter with him. Anyway, keep up the good work. I absolutely love you and Madelayne. You guys are the best. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
I'm going to vote creep on that one.
Oh,
Yeah. The mayor of Creep Town.
big creep.
Like the porn part's not even the worst part. Like what really made me cringe is this, like I'm locked in my apartment. Like just the idea of getting locked in your apartment's crazy. And then to fake it.
See, this is why when I'm asked, "Are you home?" I'm like, "I don't know. What do you want? I'll decide if I'm home or not."
Depends.
I've never been locked in my apartment. That doesn't happen.
And what was the plan?
What was the plan? Now we're asking the real questions.
Like he definitely had something that he was looking to do there, and then maybe he either chickened out or he messed it up.
Something.
Because like there was that was too weird.
Or just panned out a lot differently than it did up here.
Just didn't feel, it wasn't like it worked out in that movie he was watching in his room there before she showed up. What I don't get is what could she have done from the outside? If you're locked in your apartment.
That's what I don't get.
She'd just be on the other side of the door like, there's no buttons here or anything. It's just a locked door.
But it's very much like the Ted Bundy-esque kind of thing where it's like, he's trying to load something in a car and he has like or holding books and he's got a fake broken arm and he's asking like this tiny little college girl to like help him hold all his books or like lift this huge thing into a car.
Yeah.
Like this guy's like, "Hey, can you come over and like break my door down?
To my lair?"
Like my random woman neighbor.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and when she said that, I was like, "Is she the super? Does she have keys we don't know about? What's going on?
Are you the Hulk?
Yeah.
What's happening?"
We hear from a lot of people with odd ways of trying to meet and pick up women. Well, and some women doing weird stuff to try to pick up men. The next story comes from a listener named Jesse, who's encountered more creeps than you would expect while working on the crisis line.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Yeah, buckle up.
Hello, Jordan and Madelayne. My name is Jesse, and I live in Oregon in the United States. I work as a therapist, but while I was getting my license to become a therapist, I worked at the crisis line in the United States. And I encountered a phenomenon which can only be described as people calling the crisis line, which is also the suicide hotline, for the purpose of masturbating. This is something that happened frequently. Multiple people were doing it, and I realized that the reason why they were doing it was not because they could not afford to call the phone sex hotline. It was because the sound of the shock in the hotline operator's voice when they found out what was happening on the other end was actually the turn on. So the non-consensual aspect of that interaction was really what the fetish was about. I thought it was always very funny, which is bad because it's a sex crime, I want to say. Although I found out later it's not actually a crime. But it is morally wrong. But the idea of people calling the suicide hotline to masturbate was very silly to me.
One way to describe it.
And sometimes people would affect specific characters while they did it. Such as there was one gentleman who would pretend very obviously pretend to have a intellectual developmental disability while he did this, because evidently that was part of his fetish. So yeah, unfortunately, the non-consensual aspect is the driver of this sort of behavior. It's not a lack of access to a consensual service, and that says something about humanity. Anyway, I love the show. Have a good day. Bye.
All right.
Yikes.
All right.
It doesn't surprise me though. I worked at call centers for years, and I remember when I worked for a satellite TV company where people would call and like order channels or order pay-per-views. I didn't get it being a male, but the females that worked there often were getting calls like that late at night from random people. Just would just call like a 1-800 number to just say dirty things to girls.
Oh,
well, it's
I feel like that's 1 degree of Kevin Bacon away from being a serial killer.
Well, the most alarming part is the non-consenting
it's
part.
It's like sexual assault for shut-ins is kind of like what's going on here.
Well, like I think the fact that they like the shock and like the fear and disgust in someone's voice means like you're gonna do something terrible. Like we're gonna see you on the news.
Oh.
Eventually.
And the characters, I was expecting to hear like Mickey Mouse voice.
Oh, see, I was expecting like a British accent.
That was not where I thought it was going.
No. It's,
no.
If you work with the public, you're going to encounter creeps. But if your work with the public involves like anonymous phone calls late at night, probably way more common than we would think. If you could talk to people who do this kind of work.
That's shocking.
It is.
And free for them.
There you go. It is free.
Let's move on to our final segment. We have this segment in every episode of Creep Encounters, I think. It's called Random Encounters. The all too common random encounter.
A mixed bag.
Let's start with, actually, there's 2 stories here we're going to share. The first one is called Ray's Little Hands.
Oh, I hate it already.
Hi guys, this is Ray in Oregon. I just wanted to call in with a creep encounter for you.
Yeah.
And if I get cut off, I'm going to send part 2 because it's kind of a long one. But it was about 10 years ago when I was working at a veterinary clinic. There was a guy that was coming in with his grandmother's cat that was really, really sick and needed a couple surgeries. And so this guy was always just very creepy, the way that he looked at the girls. He gave off a really just yuck vibe. And so one night he was there waiting for the cat, and there was another receptionist up front who told me she didn't feel comfortable closing with him there. So I told her that I would close for her, and I sent her home. And there were technicians in the back, so I could page somebody up front if I really needed help. And I'm up front doing my closing duties, typing at the computer, and this guy is staring at me. And I assume he's staring under my scrub top or down my scrub top. And he comes closer and he's staring at my hands. And he says, "Wow, you have the most beautiful hands." And I said, "Thank you." And then he says, "No, really, you have the most beautiful, tiny hands." He said, "They're just so small. I bet they could fit just about anywhere." But it was the way that he said it. I'm even telling you now, I'm like getting the creeps all over again. It was the way he said it, the way he said anywhere. There was an emphasis on it that I felt like there was an implication, and it did not make me feel good. So I just jokingly replied, "Yeah, you should see them try to open a jar of sauce." And this entire time, he's just like staring at my hands while I'm going over the discharge paperwork with him. And so finally, I get him out of there, and I am walking to my train stop after work. And so I get to a Walmart, and I hear a car pull up beside me. And I turn around, and it's this guy. And he says, "Hey," he says, "can I give you a ride home?" And I said, "Absolutely not." And then he says, "I'm not stalking you, though, I swear." And I told him that's exactly what a stalker would say.
100%.
He would not take no for an answer. So finally I was like, "Yo, dude, I gotta go." And I run into Walmart. I call my friend, one of my guy friends who lives really close by, and he comes right over, texts me when he's out front. And as soon as I leave the Walmart, this guy pulls up again and is trying to wave me down. So I just make a beeline for my friend's car. I dive into the front seat and I say, "Go, go, go." And I tell him to take a different way home because I don't want this creeper to follow me. And so I get home, everything's fine. Unfortunately, this guy still has to come into the clinic for follow-up visits. One of the last times this guy came in, he was in an exam room and he was watching porn on full volume on his phone, not with earbuds in. So everybody could hear the porn happening in the lobby. It was extremely disturbing and very, very unsettling. But it still haunts me to this day because I told all of my family about it in my horror. Obviously, it was a terrible experience. And they all make fun of me about it now. If they need help reaching something in a tight space, they'll say, "Ray, I need your tiny hands," you know? And it brings up those yucko feelings all over again. But anyway, that's my creep encounter. Hope you guys are doing great. Thanks.
I really screwed up the themes. That could have been a pet story.
That could have been so many. That's a real family too, to like take your trauma and turn it into like the running joke.
Yeah, like,
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, that's real
love.
family shit, right?
such
there.
a dad move. Like, where's your little hands?
Oh my god.
What was he implying? I bet you could put those. And she said the emphasis on anywhere, so I bet you could put those anywhere.
Yeah, I'm like, sir, like what? What? And she's like, it's the way he said it. I'm like, no, it's the actual information and what he said too.
Every bit of it was wrong. The porn in the waiting room is a real move.
Serial killer.
I think that just playing music without headphones on in public should be a chargeable offense.
Yes,
or
I
going on
agree.
speakerphone.
Yes.
Yes. Ugh. And then they hold their phone up
Yeah.
to their ear anyway.
Oh yeah, when you see someone, they have their phone up to their ear and it's on speakerphone.
Like, you're still getting the radiation. It's not working. And you're
and
annoying all of us.
everyone.
But
That's
the
that's
porn
just-
thing and
Like, I hope someone was like, "Sir, turn it off."
It's like
Yeah,
when
he's
you're
like,
in that waiting room, how do you
weirdo.
not turn to him and be like, "Are you fucking kidding? Like, are you joking?" Like, I'd be like, "What's wrong with
he's
you
like, I should stop it. Why don't you press stop
Right?
with your hand?
with your tiny little hands?"
Oh, with your tiny little hand.
I was hoping she was gonna be like, "Yeah, I used to see these hands when they like wrestle a grizzly bear,
Or like strangle
when they
you.
punch you in the face."
He would love it. No, like you strangle this guy and he's just smiling as he goes
I know. I feel like
unconscious.
he would love it.
Yeah, maybe we should not bring up asphyxiation.
Let's get to our final story. This one sends shivers down my spine because I too have video doorbells on both doors, and every so often they manage to film something weird. This is a listener named Jasmine whose video doorbell picked up a creep on her front porch.
Hey, my name is Jasmine and I live in Virginia. And this is a story about how I woke up to a man masturbating on my porch.
Oh.
And we're off.
I had just moved in to my roommate's place about a month before. My boyfriend's spending the night. And I have the Ring app. And on my door, I keep getting notifications back to back to back that like someone's ringing the door. There's motion in front of the door, whatever. And I try ignoring it because it's 4 a.m. I just want to go to sleep. I assume it's my roommate's new girlfriend who is probably drunk. She forgot the code, whatever. And something tells me to just pick up my phone and start looking at the footage. And that is when I see a man knocking on my door, and I have a large panel, 4 little rectangles stacked on each other right next to my door. So it's like a door length skinny window that you can look through. And of course, my lovely roommate had left all of my lights on so he could see inside my house. He's looking, he's knocking, he's looking. And the next video starts and his shirt's up and he's just standing there. And I was like, bold move. And then he sits down on this little bench, long bench that I have right in front of my door, and whips out his genitalia and starts masturbating. And he does this for maybe a minute. And he's just looking around, doing his business, pulls up his pants, and then just fucking stumbles out of my yard. Sorry for cussing. I don't know if that's allowed, but
I love, sorry for cussing, I don't know if that's allowed. After she describes this man masturbating on her step, it's like, you crossed the line.
Crossed the line, yeah.
Let's get back into it.
So I wake up my boyfriend and he shoots awake. He must have felt the bad vibes. And I'm not recommending you do this because I was very upset with him doing this, but he gets in his Jeep and he starts looking for this guy, because this guy is just obviously, from my footage, walking around, knocking on doors, trying to find someone to have some relations with. And my boyfriend finds him while I'm on the phone with the police. And my boyfriend, pulls up, the guy stumbling up, asking for a ride. And my boyfriend lets him in. Again, please do not do this. That was fucking crazy. And so the guy is asking my boyfriend, how old are you? And my boyfriend, being smart, we're both 23, 24. He was like, oh, I'm actually 17. But that didn't stop the guy. He was still trying to mess with my boyfriend and just saying a bunch of nasty stuff that my boyfriend would just not repeat to me. And so the police get him. Whatever, my boyfriend finds the police car, gets out the car, brings the police to his car, gets the guy. And the police had actually already picked him up that night for public intoxication, but let him go. And they said with just my ring footage alone, they couldn't charge him. But because my boyfriend lied about being 17, they said, oh, yeah, sure, that's fine. But then fast forward the court date, they fucking lost my ring footage. They didn't properly obtain it. I sent it, but they just didn't go through the right channels to get it. So they didn't have my footage in court and it all got dropped. And so now the man is walking around somewhere still doing his thing. And I thought about sending the footage to his family members, but I'm pretty sure that's a crime because I found his Facebook. But maybe I'll just sit on it for a while and I don't know. But that's super disgusting. Please have footage on your doors. People are gross. And that's not the first and only thing that's happened to me. That's just that insane. I've tracked a lot of crazy. So if you would like to hear others, I would be more than happy. But that is one of my biggest creep encounters. Thank you so much.
Doesn't surprise me.
I was just going to say, never surprised, always disappointed.
Yeah, but the cops really come out with mud on their face in this story. They arrest the guy earlier in the night and release him. Then they don't properly obtain the footage from her, so it's not admissible in court, and the charges get dropped. This creep's just had an easy run of it.
I wish she would have sent it to his mom. That's
honestly.
That's the best justice. If you ever get
Yes.
an unsolicited dick pic, or someone says just something,
just send it to their mom.
Unhinged online, be careful because we can find anyone.
We'll find your mom.
I will tell on you.
Yeah. She makes a good point though. She's like, I don't even know, would it be illegal? Because I guess what she could do is put up, and I often see something like this, not a still image of him masturbating, but of him standing at the door being put it on Facebook and be if anyone sees this guy, he did a horrible thing to himself on the bench outside of my house.
Yeah, well, exactly. You don't have to, whether you're posting it publicly or finding his mom, you don't have to send her the photo or footage. You can just simply tell on him.
Yeah, just say, this is what your son did on my front porch. And also, the police being well, the ring footage isn't a crime. like, what's on the ring foot? I'm like, so you can just go like whack it on someone's porch in the middle of the night?
I guess.
It's frowned upon, but yeah.
Like I'm like, what? Like I thought that would be
But
illegal.
what would the crime be? I guess it'd be like indecent exposure or
At
at
least
least
that.
that, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
See,
It's
I think my toxic trait would be like I would start an argument via the Ring camera. Be like, I can see your shrimp dick. Please go away.
Oh, 100%. Emasculate the hell out of him over the. I 100%.
I don't know what the boyfriend was thinking.
That was bold.
What was his motivation? And I also don't get why the boyfriend lied about his age. I guess just to see, what the guy would do.
I guess, yeah.
Well, he fished and he caught a creep.
He did. He caught a
just
predator.
given what this guy just did, you want him in your truck?
Yeah, no, because I was gonna say, like, when she was like, "Oh," and my boyfriend like ran out the door and got in his car to follow this guy, I was like, "Oh, my husband would probably do that too." Like, I'm not like I could definitely see John. I'd be like, "No, don't," and he'd just be out.
Stop.
Getting in the car, I don't think so.
That's.
I think he'd probably just want to find the guy.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, you went the extra mile. Just letting him in the car, having a whole conversation.
I know my husband would do that.
I love that so much, though. That is also my husband's energy. That's why when this lady was like, "Don't do this," but he ran out, I was like, "Oh, yeah. He would definitely do this."
So this is only like a small chunk of the creep encounter stories we get during the run of a week. Alaina, are you surprised that there are this many creeps out there that you could have 21 volumes of this stuff?
You will never be able to stop this show. You will never slow down.
My children will take over. My kid and Madelayne kids will have your kids as a guest for volume 360.
They'll pop on.
Creeps the next generation.
Your cup runneth over, and it will continue to.
Yeah. It's what is there anything about this that has surprised you? Any story in particular that surprised you, Alaina? Because you're new to this. Madelayne and I have already lost our innocence through these stories.
Yeah. I won't say that anything's surprising. I was more just like, oh, okay, so like dead pet transporters do that too. Like that was more just like, oh, cool. That's in
the
that
variety of the
well.
stories is shot like the different twists, because we've all experienced a creep, but the different like twists and spins on that classic story is what surprises me. The dead pets, that was an interesting take. The crisis line surprised me.
The little nuances, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one surprised me because of the details of it, like the characters that people like to take on.
And also what surprises me is that for a lot of people, it seems like maybe it's a little therapeutic to get the story out. I often hear, like, I can almost hear it in people's voice that they're, this is a story that I have no other reason to tell anybody. Here it is. We can kind of laugh at it, but we can also kind of learn from it. And I think the lesson we often learn is like, trust your instincts, look out for yourself, keep your wits about you. No matter what you're doing, whether it's walking your dog or sitting at the front desk of your work.
And you don't have to be nice. You don't have to be polite.
What? No. Yeah, that's really good advice especially from someone who hasn't sat in on the prior 20 volumes. So many of the stories are, and it's like, I was at work, so I couldn't just be like, fuck you, buddy. I had to, talk to this guy and sit at the table with him or whatever. So many stories are people taking advantage of people who have to be nice to them due to their employment. And that's sad.
That's bullshit. Never worry about telling someone to fuck off.
Classic advice.
If you're uncomfortable, right?
When I bartended, you could do that. In the nightclub, if someone bugged you, you could tell them to fuck off. And that was the best part of the job.
As you should. Everybody should. If someone's making you uncomfortable, tell them to fuck off. It doesn't matter. You're at work. Okay. Whatever.
I think telling someone that they're making you uncomfortable is worse.
Fuck off. It's just like it brings you into like a familiar kind of territory, but you make me uncomfortable. It's just like, whoa.
Then you're like, you're a creep. Like you're essentially telling that person. That's a new no.
So maybe don't tell them. Your first instinct maybe shouldn't be fuck off. It should be, sir, you're making me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, slow down.
Yeah. Take it down a notch.
Alaina, it's been awesome having you here. We got to do it again sometime.
Yes.
Anytime I can collab with you, it's great. I'm always happy to.
I feel the same. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome. I would do this a million more times. This was so much fun.
Some other time we'll have you back, but it's always awesome to talk with you. And any listeners of Nighttime who haven't checked out Morbid, do it. And any listeners of Nighttime who like books, look up Alaina's.
I got books.
I want to thank you for joining Madelayne, Alaina, and myself for this episode of Nighttime. Now, I'm going to start wrapping things up here, but before I do, let me end with some thanks. First, a huge and sincere thank you to everyone who took their time to share their creep encounters with us. These stories serve as a great reminder to keep our eyes open and our wits about us. And to any other listeners out there who have a story to share, we're going to be doing a whole bunch more episodes in this series, and we'd love to feature your story. You can share it at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. If you got something to share, go to the site now. The voice recorder is easy to use, and if you make any mistakes or misspeak, I'll be sure to edit before anything goes to air, and I'll make sure we're all sounding our best. I'm excited to hear from you. Next, I'm going to give a big thank you to Alaina and Madelayne for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A shout out to Monty, Datta, who contributes the music for this episode, and LJ from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides my intro and outro voiceovers. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers of the premium feed. Dave, Jennifer, and Megan, we appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can help us out here in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium right now at nighttimepodcast.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know why they should listen. If anyone out there has any story ideas, wants to give feedback on the show, or would like to submit a question or comment for an upcoming episode, you can do all that and more at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. We hope to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte.